Hi, and welcome to an AI and C# video about tools, skills, and MCPs, and why most people misunderstand the difference and how they actually work behind the scenes. I've been wanting to make this video for quite a while, mostly because, as it says here, people misunderstand how they work. They also misunderstand how AI content providers works behind the scenes. Uh, but I've never gone around to it. But there has been some sources that have led me to make this video. The first one is a fairly old one, and that is that at some point MCPs became the bad guy. They were using a lot of tokens and stuff, and skills uh, were the new big thing. They were much better and used almost no tokens, which is technically correct in some situations, but is what we will get into. At the same time, the skills were implemented as an AI context provider. If you don't know AI context provider, that's an additional thing you can enter into a agent in Microsoft Agent Framework that can do pre and post injection of various things into an LLM. It's mostly used for memory, for example, but it can be used for a lot of other things. And the Microsoft Agent Framework team use it for quite a lot. In my opinion, too much, but we will get into that throughout the video. But this was one of them. That okay, we shouldn't use MCPs anymore. They are just bad. In my opinion, no, but I will explain. Second was a question from a recent video about zero to rack. So I have blurred out the person who asked it because I haven't gotten their permission. But essentially, they just said, "Thank you for the video. I have a question. Why are you defining RAG search as a tool instead of an AI content provider like text search provider?" I will get into what this is with an example in 1 second. And then I mentioned, yes, it could be done, but why turn 4 simple lines of code into something much more complex with AI content provider? And then I give sort of the main reason for this video, so I'm taking it out, so no spoilers here. And then I mentioned what I use AI content providers for, like memory extraction, and I have a dedicated video about that as well. So, but the person comes back, and this is what mainly sparked this video. Not because this person is misinformed in any way, but because this is a very common thing that people misunderstand. And that is my concern is that the tool requires an additional round trip to the model, so we use more latency, get additional usage, and that's why I said here that's the common misconception. I will make a videos about it soon, meaning this video, and then I explain a bit more what's going on in this video. But they come back again. But AI context provider is automatically invoked at the start of the request. It does not invoke a request to the model. I mean, we don't see it in the additional traces. So they can't see that the model does anything special. It doesn't call a tool or whatever. It just magically do it. And I don't believe in magic in this regard, at least. Because what most people think is that they just define some tools, which is for them, I'm putting this in quotation marks, the old way of doing things. They can do MCPs, but they shouldn't because they are too expensive now. Everything should just be skills and AI context providers. And the LLM will receive the skills and the context providers as their delivery methods and plus the messages that are being sent. And then the LLM will magically do things. And this is absolutely not how it works. I have an updated version of this in 1 second, but let's see some code in order to back up my claims here. So I've made a small project here called Tools versus MCPs versus Skills versus AI context. Long name. And I have 3 scenarios. So first up, why does MCP servers have such a bad rep now? So let's set a breakpoint here. Let's actually just run it so we can see what's going on. I will comment out the 2 other ones here. So it is now running. It has a small chat loop, and I can just say hi. And let's just quickly have a look. What I'm actually doing here is the same as what I did in my MCP tools video, where I make an MCP client, use it together with the GitHub MCP, and then I'm just giving those that MCP as tools down here, because that's how you turn an MCP server into a tool. Yeah. So, and what people will see and be horrified about if I say hi, you'll see that hi takes up 8,458 tokens. So yes, by this account, MC tools like this, MCP tools, are horrible. But that's mostly GitHub's fault. Because if we have a look at what tools they actually give us, they give us 44 different tools. 44 tools is quite a lot in an MCP server. Most have 3 or 5, 3, 4, 5 tools. And you can see they have very, very long descriptions, and each one of them takes a lot of additional, not this one, but others takes a lot of properties in order to work. So this is, in my opinion, an MCP done wrong. Because MCP should be a fairly simple protocol, and this is, in my case, overusage. Or you can argue that MCP for GitHub is quite a lot, because GitHub can do a lot of things. So if you use all these, then it makes sense. But if you just use only things for issues, then it's your responsibility to not just go in and give all 44 tools, filter them down by names in here about issues, and then you get a smaller list and therefore less tokens. So MCPs are just tools, and in some cases, many people went overboard with their MCP and added too many tools, and that was the reason we ended up with this. So that's the MCP part. Of course, then we have the skills. I will come in, let's take skills first so we can see it. So skills, how do they work? Because if we look into here, many people just think that LLMs now know the concept of skills, but that's not the case. So if we comment out this and set a breakpoint here inside, we will see what's going on. I have a little thing where we can actually go in and see the raw requests and responses. We will see them a little later once we have run this tool once. And I will actually also, for the sake of it, just comment out one line here before we do that. So I don't want to show the tools right now. So in this case, this one is set to go in and ask what are the company values. It has been given some skills. And these skills are in here. I have an employee handbook with some reference things here, and I have a secret formula skill, and I have a speak like a pirate skill. In this case, we are asking for what are the company values, and this skill in here will have something with culture and values. So we will guess that the LLM magically, again, reads this and can see our values. And if we just look at the output, it could. But what happens behind the scenes here is actually tools. And we can see that by going in to this and turning on a tool called middleware. So it will write out whenever a tool is called. And we will then see that what actually happens, if we let it run and ask for company values again, it will actually load the skill using a tool call, and it will actually use one more tool to read the resource as well. So it still do tools. Those tools will cost tokens like normal. So in that regard, it's not better than a MCP server with two tools. But where it is different is if we go in and put on that we can see every single little thing that's happening. So now we are also printing out the raw responses, and they are a bit big. So we will scroll up here at the top and see. So what is happening behind the scenes is our AI context provider here, AI skills. Here. Go in and look inside that. Just looking at the metadata. It is just an AI context provider like any, and it has various different options to do various different tools. So it will make tool calling, and when we find the need to find the provide context, it will build a set of tools and will build a set of instructions. So instructions will be all the skills, in my case, all their names and descriptions are on the fly being built. Oh, go back into the instructions, and it will build in tools for the various things that we need to do for each skill. And in order to load the skill, load resources from the skill, run scripts from the skill. So it builds up essentially 3 tools that we need to send. And we can see that inside the call. So we can see we have tools here. We have a load skill tool. We have a read resource skill tool, and we have a run script tool. And then in the instructions, despite my small instructions, you are nice AI, it embed all this into it as well. That tells what each skill is called, and it's a description. So essentially, the AI context provider is just a different way of bundling up skills, instructions, and tools. And in my case, I need to set up that it shouldn't do it shouldn't ask for approval on them and so on. So often this can take quite a while to set up, and it's kind of magic what happens, because when I did this the first time and I didn't really know that that it was tool approval, I saw this came in. Oh, let me disable this so it's a little easier to see what actually happens. I saw this, like no text back. And when you outsource all this code, in my opinion at least, you end up missing the points of many of the things that is going on. So I needed to turn them off, else I would need to have that response would only be a tool request approval that I needed to take care of as well. That's a matter of opinion on how things should work, of course, but I tend to feel like this is too much of bundling, and that's also why my own implementation of agent skills is quite different, where I go in and say, I get the skills, and you can say, then get instructions. And then you can use those instructions directly in yourself in however you want it, and not just the way the Microsoft Agent Framework version does it. And then my agent skills can say, get us tools. So this is a more manual approach, but it's, in my opinion, a less easier to understand approach. And you can take these tools and put them into approval mode if you need to or not, instead of needing to do it by additional settings. It's a matter of opinion, but the main point here is that skills are actually just tools as well. It's just a better, a smaller tool that uses less tokens because it only loads in an MCP. It would load all the text here or have multiple tools for every single one of these references, while a skill, and again, I'm not against skills. I love skills and use them all the time, but I'm not being fooled that they are a magical thing that an LLM understands, because they don't. They still need to have its files read as tools. So we don't get rid of the tool calling just by doing it. So that is the skills part. Yeah. So again, we can definitely use skills, but behind the scenes, they are turned into tools and instructions on the fly, which is the main thing an AI context provider does, beside being able to inject something into the LLM code. The final one we had was this correspondence about what is going on here. And I knew about the text search provider, but I never really tended to use it in this, because I knew I could make it in 4 lines. So let's jump into that. So I have here roughly the same text without a lot of extra comments and stuff here. But essentially, I'm just taking some data. If you don't know RAG, you definitely should go see that video before. But I'm just embedding some data. And what the person was talking about was this. I have a tool just defined as a delegate here, where I do the search result, do the search, and get my value, and then I give that as a tool. And if we run this, switch out to the right question here, let it run to here. So it's just embedding the data right now. That's not the point of this. Oh. So what you saw is I had my RAG tool here, and it's now come back with the question, but you can see it made a tool call request to a run search with what is the Wi-Fi password, which is my question here. So this is normal tool calling and nothing special here. But the caller mentioned something called text search provider. And what I mentioned back was 1, 2, 3, 4 lines of code. I felt that this was the easiest way to give it to an LLM. But the caller is right. You can do it in a different way. And I'm doing this right down here. So you can do it, and you can give this text search providers. But in order to do that, you need to make the more advanced version of Ask AI Agent. So my 2 lines of code here, I need to be fair, 3 lines of code, turns into all this in order to do exactly the same, because AI context providers cannot be set on this. In reality, I don't really care because I use my agent framework toolkit, which makes all of them much easier to call. So that should not really change anything. But when I make these videos, I don't use agent framework toolkit, which is my easier way of using all this, because I don't want to confuse people with that. I want people to learn the raw and then perhaps move on to my advanced or simpler version of running agent framework. But when I need to do it like that, I would need to set up chat options in order to put instructions in. This is much more cumbersome to work with because we need just the AI context provider. And since everything is AI context providers more or less now, we always end up with this. But let's take that beside the point. The text search provider can be used, and it requires a function that does the search. So even further, we need to build this code. This code is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lines of code. So we could get rid of my 4 lines of code and my 3 lines of code here in order to write 5 lines of code here and all these extra lines of code here. So definitely in terms of understanding and stuff, I feel this is easier, but that's a matter of opinion. But what this one does is just a function that is being injected into the text search provider, and we can just do more or less exactly the same. It just needs to come back as a text search result instead of us defining how we want to return it. So that's again a matter of opinion, but that's okay. But something interesting happens when we actually do this, because we have just seen we called it using my way and we used a tool call. And now we do it with the text search provider and it doesn't do a tool call. So this must mean this is much better. It's not needing to do tool calls just as the person here says. But AI context provider is automatically invoked at the start of the request. It does not involve a request to the model. And it seems to be correct. So am I wrong in this? And it turns out that it's a bit more complicated than that. So what happens is, and let me turn on so we can see the raw calls here. And there will be a lot of raw calls because all the embedding will also do raw calls. But I will guide you to the end here when we see it and see what actually happens. So we will just let it run to the end and then we will look at this. So here we can see the raw request that happens whenever we use the text search. And what it does is it takes my input message and say, what is the Wi-Fi password? That makes sense. That's normal. But it adds one more message. And it says that additional context, and then it gives the RAG search. And the other one, it did a tool call search. And in my RAG introduction videos, I actually talk about this because you can definitely give RAG data upfront to let's say a chatbot. because sometimes smaller models are not good enough at doing the tool calling. So it might be a good idea to say, let's just do the RAG search, give it as raw additional information, and then let the user answer, or the AI answer. And that's what's happening here. So we're just giving it up front. So the person asking the question is technically correct. Yes, we didn't do a tool call, and we technically saved some tokens because we didn't need to do the 2 round trips, one for the original and one for the tool call question. But that's only in the coincidence that we actually directly asked the question here. Had I asked, hi, we shouldn't need the RAG tool search, because that would just be an introductory pleasantry, I would say, to an AI agent, and it will still do the RAG search. And it will do a RAG search for hi. You can try to do it. So it's a trade-off. Do you do tool calls or do you do upfront work? I mentioned that in my original video about that. Because if we look, the text search tool cannot go in and do anything special here. It will still give all the extra input into the system, despite us just saying hi. So that is the reason why I don't personally like the search tool, as we just... Oh, I put it in the wrong place, but I hope you get the understanding that giving something up front instead of with a tool is kind of bad if you don't need it for the question that the user will enter. But in this case, we can do it. And the text search tool actually have this as an option, because we can go in and set a search time. And here we also see the reason why things happening, because the default is invoke before AI invoke, but you can change it into on-demand function calling. And then you can give the tool a name. And if we do that, and let's get rid of all the extra debugging code here, we will see that after the embedding and my version, we will see that the text search tool will do exactly the same. It will do a tool call against the system, and it will get an answer back. So text search tool is not a magic thing that prevents round trips, other than it's all depending on who you ask, do before AI invoke first. And if it do before AI invoke, of course, you don't get the round trip, but you fill up your context window in a different way, depending on if you need to do that search every single time or not. So that's just a matter of opinion, which one will be the most beneficial in your scenario. But it's certainly not a better way or a worse way in any way. It's just a simple different way of doing things, and in my opinion, a much more clumsy way, because we need the AI context provider for it, and it's kind of hiding away what we actually want to do. So to conclude this, if we actually look at what's going on, we have an LLM, but behind the scenes, it can only do 3 things. It can receive messages, it can have tool definitions, and it can do structured output definitions, which we don't do in this video. But that's just the only 3 things LLM understands. It's not like OpenAI and Gemini and Anthropic, went along, and when skills came along, they built something into the LLM. They didn't. The LLM have actually really not changed since tools came along, roughly back in 2024. So whenever we do a tool, of course, it's just a tool definition. But when we do MCPs, it's just a lot of tools giving us a tool definition. Whenever we do skills, it's essentially just instructions of the skill with a name and description that goes into the messages. And then it adds 3 tools in order to execute and read the different parts of the skill. Yes, they're good if the skills are not used, but if you technically use all the skills, it will actually cost you just the same, if not even more, because there's more tools. And if we look at the context provider, you should actually see that more as just a bundle of tools and instructions whenever things are being put in, because the skills implementation from Microsoft Agent Framework is just the one, and they give the skill instructions and the tools. The text tool was just extra instructions or extra messages in this case, which can also be done, and some tools in terms of skills. So it's just a bundle, and I think it's one of 2 reasons why the Agent Framework tool, Agent Framework team does this. One is that it's a nice way to bundle stuff in for people who don't understand what's going on or don't want to understand what's going on behind the scenes. And also, since AI Context Provider is their specific thing, while tools are not, they are from Microsoft Extensions AI. It kinds of, if a lot of people begin to use context providers, they end up being stuck to Agent Framework. That's just my conspiracy theory of that, but it doesn't matter. AI context providers are cool, skills are cool, MCPs are cool, tools are cool, but behind the scenes, everything becomes a tool. So you can jokingly say it's like it's turtles all the way down, it's tools all the way down to the LLM. So LLM, by its technical nature, have no clue what an MCP server is, have no clue what a skill is, have no clue what an AI context provider is. All turned into tools. And that is the big misconception I have seen from a lot of people when they talk about these. So if you have a good MCP and it has a few good tools, don't be worried about token cost. It would be just as much if you use the skill. Making tools on your own is easier in some cases compared to an AI context provider. So you don't need to put everything into an AI context provider just to get one tool into the tool system when you have the direct tool option. So I hope this clears up a lot of things for people who are confused about these different cases. I hope my person who got asked the question will see this video and understand why I wanted to go this route and why I did the way I did. Again, I'm not against any of the other tools. I'm just feeling that use the right tool for the job. And in my case, an AI context provider was overkill in that video. And a skills implementation can be done both with AI context providers. But in my case, I feel like I like having more control. And the more you bundle and abstract things away, the less control you have. And that's a matter of opinion, not against the way things are being done, but it's just a matter of opinion. And the most important thing is you understand what's going on behind the scenes. And I hope this video did that. So that's everything. See you in the next one.